All right, so let's go to Romans chapter 6, and we're going to be at verse 15. And I don't know, Levi, I don't know if I told you last week, but what we're doing right now is we're trying to do a flyover overview of Paul's writings, and we're going chronologically with how he wrote when he wrote it. So we got to Romans about 3 months ago? 4 months ago?
Half a century. I don't know.
Yeah, and I like to do. I'm a guy that likes to do cross-reference of where the message is coming from originally. The first times that it comes from in the Old Testament as well as New Testament, wherever it comes from, to try to base where the verses come theologically. So it's not just Paul says something, so that's all true. It's where does Paul get this? Romans is the worst book in the entire Bible to do that from, because what Paul has done in Romans is he's given us the Cliff Notes version of his entire theology that he's already pointed out before that. And he's using references from those previous letters and books. So he's quoting himself, but he's not building upon himself. He's building upon himself from when he had built from the original. So you're 2 layers removed from the original theology. So trying to find cross-references for Romans directly is a really difficult task. He actually cross-references Romans in Romans a lot. So it's one of those ones where it takes a little bit more work to dig out where stuff comes originally. We make statements like to be born again, born again Christian. Until you got to the point where someone explained that, there was no reference to that. So how do you find where that comes from and what that talks about and those kind of things? You have to go back and find it. Go ahead.
I'm just going to point out for either you or whoever may be listening that Romans is his last one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is, you've alluded to, but you didn't say. It's the last book that he wrote, but it's the first one of his writings in the book.
In the Bible.
So it's like that sort of leads to its importance. I don't know.
And they do it after Acts, so you get the point of the gospel, which is Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Then they give you Acts, which is the continuation of those disciples and what everybody did after Jesus went. And then they give you Romans, so that you can have the encapsulation of all the theology that Paul brought to the table. It makes sense when you're reading the Bible to do the New Testament like that, so you get to the point. Mm-hmm. And then the rest is how we helped people in different areas and did different things that were secondary. What's up, Al?
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Babies, all over the place. Is Julie going to be here today?
No, she's still in the hospital.
Oh, she's still in the hospital.
We had a C-section.
Okay.
I'll probably go home tomorrow, Tuesday.
Okay, cool. So Romans, we're going to be Romans 6, verse 15. And Levi, could you read it at 6:15?
We're looking at the slaves to righteousness?
Yes.
All right. What then? Shall we sin because we are not under law but under grace? By no means.
Okay, so Paul does this a lot. He does a sarcastic statement. Mine is just slightly different, which is no big deal. What then shall we sin because we are not under the law but under grace? Certainly not. He's asking a rhetorical question. But why is he asking a rhetorical question? Because there's people out there that still theologically say, I'm saved. I can go do that now. Mm-hmm. Yes, you can. People listening out there in the world, yes, you can. I would question whether or not, if you're already thinking that way, depending on where your salvation is, did you get saved?
I'd like to point out that, with the exception of the idea that, hey, I'm going to go out and do that, that's a relatively, good theological concept that a lot of people don't get to very easily. Like an understanding of what grace actually does for you, like how free you are
Right.
because of it. Most people, or a lot, I say most, you don't get to that point as early as probably most of these people that he's talking to or about did. There's always like this what do I do now? How do I fix this? I still need to do this, don't I? I still need to slaughter the goat, and I still need to sprinkle the blood, or whatever they were doing back then, or I still need to Our Fathers and Hail Marys and whatever it is, you know. With the exception of the idea that's like, oh, good, now I can go do this thing that I want to do. It's a pretty good understanding of what grace is all about.
Yeah. And the freedom that there is in grace. Let's. This actually wasn't on our cross reference, but we'll go ahead and jump back to it, and then poor Justin. I'll have to make up to him for jumping over to this one because I didn't write. Let's go back to Genesis 15. Kurt, read at Genesis 15, 4, and read down through the end of 7.
Then the Lord said to him, no, your servant will not be your heir, for you will have a son of your own who will be your heir. Then the Lord took Abram outside and said to him, look up into the sky and count the stars if you can. That's how many descendants you will have. And Abram believed the Lord, and the Lord counted him as righteous because of his faith. Then the Lord told him, I am the Lord who brought you out of Ur of the Chaldeans to give you this land as your possession.
Okay, so we just witnessed in historical writing Abram salvation, him becoming righteous through his faith to God, and God believing that he's going to give him righteousness. Okay, one of the most important groups of little verses in the Bible, because this is where we mess up, as in we, the people. In this case, it was Abram that did it. But when we talk about not getting how free God is, how free God makes us, and how grace works, how easily grace given we are, we just saw it. That's what just happened. What happens next? Read the next verse.
But Abram replied, O sovereign Lord, how can I be sure that I will actually possess it?
Keep going.
The Lord told him, bring me a 3-year-old heifer, a 3-year-old female goat, a 3-year-old ram.
Okay, stop there. Abram was done. He had the complete freedom from the law. He had righteousness that had been delivered to him as grace.
I don't think God didn't need that stuff. I think he did that more for Abram's sake.
That's what I'm saying. Is Abram said,
God rolled his eyes at that point. He's
he
like,
did.
all right, look, if you really need to, bring me these 3 things so that you'll feel better about yourself.
And it keeps
I
going.
be sure.
The entire law was created because man said to God, well, God, how can I know that you saved me? You know what? Let me give you a bunch of tasks. Let me give you some busy work to make it so that you confirm in your own need to do something that I am God and I have saved you.
God's like, you got time to lead, you got time to clean.
That's right. And, exactly, and the entirety of the Old Testament, and all the way up until Jesus Christ frees us from sin, points to the fact that this original salvation had only to do with faith. Faith and grace. Having faith that God is going to do what he said he's going to do and he'll save you from your sin. Done. That's it. That's all you needed. The whole point of the law and Moses having the law and everything about the law was to point out to you, you can't keep the law. All those rules and tasks aren't what matter. I'm God. I'm saving you. That's what matters. But I love it. I mean, how stupid. How stupid. Abram, why did you do that? Why did you make it so people... Well, if it hadn't happened, we wouldn't get that we can't keep the law. We wouldn't get that sin is something that overruns us and is rampant through our lives. Because we'd be like, oh, God saved me. I'm good. Done. I'm going to go sin over here. You know? We wouldn't even know what sin was if those tasks and those laws hadn't been placed out there for us to know. So I just wanted to go there just to make sure that some of the things that you were saying are so, theologically sound of we don't even get how free it is. Because God was so free in this case, he was done. You're going to heaven, Abram. We're good. How do I know that, God?
Well, besides the fact that I'm God talking to you in the face right now.
And I took you out and showed you the stars.
God should have just been like, because I said so.
Because I said so, that's
Yeah,
right.
but I do think that's a common problem in, anybody who's getting involved in the church, or getting involved in any type of religion is, and I do think that there is a ton of people that do question
Yes.
God's love for us, and I do
Yes.
think that they question, is there really a God out there?
Yeah.
Is it, when I die, am I really going to live eternal life in heaven? Is there a heaven? Is there a God? And I think that's
Absolutely.
that's a big that's a huge problem. Not necessarily a problem, but I think that enables a lot of people trying to get involved and really trying to get in touch with their faith is, if you're not 100% sure, it's hard to put 100% into building the relationship with God or
Very true.
or really getting into the meat and potatoes of your faith.
Oh yeah, sure. If you miss the reality that God saved you because you think it's too easy, and actually there is an entire when people go into the mission field in Japan and Asian countries, usually they're taught before they leave. But I have an anecdotal story that was told by a missionary to Japan. He went over there with a small group, and he had never got any training. He went on like one of these church decides to go to Japan, help with stuff, and he went out trying to save people. As a salesperson would say, he was closing left and right. He's closing everybody. He's like, this is the most awesome thing I've ever seen in my life. Every person I talked to. And he told this to the person that was like the leader of the missionary group. And they go, you're cute. You're funny. Let me show you why. Tomorrow we'll go to those houses and see those people. Went there. Shelf full of gods. It's the joke from the Mummy movie. It's I'm so worried about whether or not I'm going to heaven. I have every god around my neck.
Yep.
And I've gathered them like keychains because I'm not sure if this is getting me to heaven, but I'm gonna buy into it enough to get me to heaven. And in those cultures, that's what you do: is you collect all the gods. They're all your buddies. They're all your friends going to help you. So very much.
Well, like I wonder if the Quran has anything in it that expressly forbids worshiping another god or that kind of thing. Like I'm wondering if our belief that doing so, prevents you from going to heaven is unique.
The Quran definitely has something against it, and several of the others have things that are against it too. But
Which you just described as people go to China or Japan or something and come back with a little Buddha.
Yeah.
And they'll tell you all about what this little Buddha does and the little face surrounding this thing. And they're not 100% bought into it, but I'm taking up yoga and I feel pretty good. And he'll go to India and come back with a painting of Shiva or whatever. It's like, this symbolizes what you not. And then before you know it, you've got an entire room with all these little trinkets from
A pantheon
various
of
different
gods.
cultures on it, and so you're not 100% bought into any of them, but you got little tastes of all of them. It's like, I kind of like what I've built here. This is kind of what I believe. Sort
Yeah.
of, maybe.
if you've ever seen the 4 weeks ago, I would remember the name of it, but the largest Buddhist statue, that's the golden gilt statue. You walk into the temple that it is, and it's this giant Buddha.
Huge.
But on all the walls, all the way around you, are little ones. And it's that, who wouldn't feel the presence being inundated in that?
And
But, yeah.
And that's where I was going to go next. You'd mentioned the Quran, and I had served in Iraq, and I tell you guys, that is one of the most faithful religions I have ever witnessed in my life. I mean, every morning,
Yeah.
when, you know, we're out on patrol and, you know, we're driving down the MSR, you're right by Baghdad, the prayer starts, you know, and the prayer is it's a community deal. It would be like a minister getting up, or a pastor getting up and on the loudspeaker in downtown Wichita and saying grace every morning.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, and the whole town freezes. Everybody pulls over. They all carry rugs in their car. They're right there on the side of the road. They get out. They roll their rug out, and they worship right there on the side of the road. And it happens twice a day.
Yeah.
You know, the whole town freezes, and everybody is about.
Yeah.
But are you sure? And look, and I've never been there, so I can't say. You know, I'm just going off conjecture and stories and maybe the Fox Newsification of the whole story, but
So it's got to be true.
actually, I just got it off Wikipedia.
I'm only kidding with you.
But I mean, like part of me wonders if they're not like that. At least some. Not I believe that most of them,
Sure.
possibly all of them, are devout and do it, you know, because they want to. But I've also heard stories about people that aren't, especially there, like, you know, Christians or even other religions being persecuted or kidnapped and killed and stuff like that. So I'm just wondering if that's why it's such a, you know, they do it and they make it such a public thing so that everybody knows.
Oh yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you on that. I mean, I'm not saying that they're doing it because they want to do it. I mean, I'm not saying that like
They're
we get
devout
up-
to doing the steps to do it because two things. They believe maybe that their God will destroy them if they don't, and they know that their neighbors will. Those are two parts. I mean, but that's also what the Jews were.
Well, that's, you know, a large cross section of the Christian community, professing Christian community is like a lot of people.
That's what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, I'm not going to point in any direction here, but, you know, there's plenty of people here. There's plenty of people at the church down the street. There's plenty of people at the church up that way that are just kind of there because they think they should be. You know, it's like, faith is not, you know, there's no one religion where everyone involved has a genuine 100% faith. It's, you know, a lot of it is,
Struggle.
well, and a lot of it is obligation.
Yeah.
A lot of it is obligatory. A lot of people just think, oh, well, this is what I should do. You know, I'm raising a family. I want to make sure that they come up right. This is probably what I should do. Let's do this. Let's make sure that they get something good. And, you know, I don't buy into this, but I'm going to put on my tie and go and go do this thing. You know, it's like getting up and going to work to a lot of people. Christian, Jew, Muslim, you know, just think you gotta do it.
But on the and I'm not trying to be argumentative at all, guys, but
No, please do. That's the point of this class.
I'm trying to play the other side of the fence too, and
James's ratings go up.
you know, so
The ratings. No, I love classes where there's dissension
So-
because that's how we get to the meat of where we find answers.
A room
we're-
full of people agreeing with each other is really boring.
we're talking about the Muslims. They're doing it in fear of consequences.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and their consequences may be dealt here in real life, okay? But why do we do it, guys? We do it in fear of our God. We do it in fear of consequences. If we don't, then we're gonna go to hell, right?
A lot of people, yeah.
I mean,
But I
I'm not
don't do it
saying-
in fear because my next door neighbor
Right.
is going to slit my throat
Sure.
if I don't.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying though. It's just because they're fearing.
What a perfect time for her to walk in.
You know, they fear, and I'm sure they do fear their God or, you know, whoever they worship, but they're fearing, like you said, their neighbor, okay? But on the same sense, though, it's got to be similar to us fearing what our God is going to do to us.
Sure.
You know, I mean, because whether you get your throat slit down here for not worshiping, or whether you get thrown into hell to live eternity in hell, you know? What's the difference?
Sure. I would
both
take it.
demolished.
I would take it on the chronological time period of becoming a mature Christian, and an analogy that I've heard before with a former youth pastor here. It was great. He says, I was a little kid, and I'd look out and I'd see my dad mowing the lawn, and I kind of was like, oh, that'd be cool to mow the lawn. I want to get to know what it's like to mow the lawn. I'm a little kid. I've never done it. And then you start mowing the lawn, and it's like, oh, this is cool. I like this. I'm into this a little bit. Yeah, this is, Then it's
July comes.
now I have to mow the lawn, and at that point, my dad starts. You get out there and mow the lawn, or I'm going to whip your butt. That's your chore. You go do it, and then you're doing it, and then you're mowing your lawn because you have to, and you're afraid. Then you become a person who's an adult, and you're mowing your lawn because you're supposed to, and it's your lawn. And you might have ordinances, but it's because you have to. And then at some point, it's like, it'd be nice to just be outside mowing the lawn. I'm outside, I'm enjoying this a little bit. I have a lawn to mow. I'm a little appreciative about my lawn. And then you start going over and helping your dad mow his lawn because he's getting older. And you enjoy time with your dad mowing his lawn and helping him. And you show your kids how important it is. And it's the progression of a Christian. It's about the relationship at the end. God the Father showed you what you're supposed to do. And as you go towards him, it's less about the fear. It's less about the what I'm supposed to. And it's more about God showed me all this enjoyment and all this stuff and why these rules exist to help me. And it's such an easy progression. Going to hell definitely started me down the path. It was one of those, I'm going to go to hell. This is going to suck. I need God. But not all people go that route. And after the fact, it's, am I going to hell still? Am I saved? Some people get into that and they're like, I couldn't sleep last night because I know what I do. I know what I did. And they're in that realm. When really what God wanted from us was the first, in the first few chapters, I want to be with you guys. I want you to get that I get where you're coming from. To the point where he sent somebody to show us, I get where you're coming from. Mm-hmm. I can handle this. I was a God who became man to help you understand. Yeah, it's a little off all the time, so
that's good.
It actually gets slower. So I'm like, we got to get out of there for church.
Actually, it's the correct time.
So we really need to, when we're wrapping our head around other religions, remember, other religions are pathways to our God. Especially one like the Muslims with Islam. They got a lot of the same books.
Oh, yeah.
They got a lot of the same structure. Our God is pointing everyone towards him. Our job as Christians is to help others find God. Well, what better starting ground for a Muslim than, I gave you Abram. You know the story of Abram. Well, let's talk about Abram, what he taught. And I'll show you where Paul points out that Abraham was saying this. Really? I believe something wholly different because, well, please don't stone me to death, but let me show you where, let me show you how that is encapsulated in the New Testament. I'm not allowed to read the New Testament. Well, your religion teaches that Jesus was a prophet. Let's go see what Jesus had to say about it. You can read what Jesus said, right? Because he's a prophet. And you go down that path to lead Muslims. Tough path. I have some friends that's their thing. But when they get there, those Muslims that become Christians are some of the strongest, most devout Christians ever. And they usually stay there and try to convert their friends.
But why wouldn't you, though? I mean, why wouldn't you? The Muslim,
You know where you came from,
different, because they still have the discipline that they had when they were Muslims.
Versus an Americanized, I prayed the Jesus prayer when I was 7. I've never had hardship. It's all good. It is all good. That's the funny thing is because we don't have the hardship, we often lose sight of the really. That's why with the prison ministry, when I work with the guys in the prison ministry, I'm just hearing these guys talk, going, man, that's me, but like on this scale, because you go from a guy who killed his girlfriend's guy that he was sleeping with, manslaughter, and you're talking to the guy about My God has saved me from my stupidity. And you're like, so is mine, but not quite that. It's the same salvation, but it hits you in a different way when you're that guy that says, and now while I'm in jail, I have a chance to minister to other people and help them find God the same way. It's like, that's awesome.
But and I'm not trying to say that anyone's religion is wrong, but just think about though when we're saved, and you feel just the presence when you become saved. At least I did anyway.
That new fresh presence.
And
yeah.
Anyway, after that, you fear nothing. If you put everything into our God, you'll fear nothing. You'll never fear death. You'll never fear being poor, being sick. You'll never fear because you know that your God's got your back. Think about how the Muslims feel. They put everything in to their God, okay? And their God will still ask them to strap a bomb on their chest and take their life in return for the 27 virgins or the
I thought it was
21
72.
virgins.
Yeah,
Or
something like that.
72 virgins, yeah.
Yeah, well,
Anyway,
I mean, if it was only
so-
27,
So, I mean,
I'm not
And
sure
are
it's
these
worth
ugly
it.
women or
think
are these
about
good looking
Sway
women?
this a little
think
bit.
about how. Think about the amount of stress that would put on you, knowing that at any time, that's what will be called upon for you to show your God how much you love Him.
Yep.
We'll never get called upon to do that. We'll never in our beliefs we'll never get called upon to do that.
Yeah.
And so I'm able to live a virtually carefree life. I never stress about where I'm going or how I'm
Good.
gonna die or any. You know what I mean?
I know,
But
if
they may have to do that. You can't tell me that that's not in the back of their heads every day.
Chain. It's
If we,
chain.
if we followed the rules, we'd only ever get one virgin.
Yeah, that's right.
What a chip.
It's true though, man. It's true.
I'm kidding.
Oh,
God, Lord.
that's their upsell. That's their upsell. I like to kind of gather this in so that way because we only got to one verse.
I didn't get to read.
You didn't even get to read.
That's fine.
Well, I actually went back when you were talking to go to some verses about exactly what you're talking about, and I'm like, that's an entire 2 pages long. We'll wait for that. We'll do that again because that's one of the things that we're supposed to be reminded of constantly. We have been filled with the full measure of the Holy Spirit. And so, it's an amazing thing that we don't bring up enough of what is the full measure of the Holy Spirit? It's God. We're full of God. And we don't tap into it. We don't remember it. We don't sit in fear and awe of just how much that should rule our lives and make us do what we're supposed to do. God, I really want to do your will today. Really? You want to go to Africa? No. No, I don't. No, I don't. And that runs into a problem for us.
Can I get you a coffee?
Yeah. Could I just talk to my friend who's already a Christian over here and help him go down the right path? The point of this class to me has always been to grow our own strength as men to do what God would have us do in this church and question one another in our walk of faith and know where we're coming from. And with Levi bringing up the statements of, that first conversion is usually the one that when you see verses about conversion says, remember back to that first when you were new, because it's a rally cry. It's a rally cry to our soul of, don't you remember? Remember. So they're in praise team, so
No, there.
they always got to go out the door as fast as possible.
I gotta make a stop first.
And so
Yeah. We'll see you in there.
and it's storage almost full. So that's my 2 cents. I'm glad you're in here because this is going to be good for challenging. What's the word? Old soft religion as it's going in this room.
Sure. Well, and
The younger, I'm still on fire.
yeah. Well, and not only that, but you go into, and it's real easy for, especially for someone like me, I've had, when I did go downrange, you learn to, as much as you hate to say it, you learn to hate people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, you learn that they're the bad guys, we're the good guys, and that's all there is to it,
Yep.
So it's easy for the, especially in a time of war, where brothers, husbands, sisters, dads are getting killed by these people,
Yep.
and it's easy for us to walk through the mall and see a Muslim, and automatically develop a hatred towards them for their beliefs.
Yep.
Automatically develop a hatred for them because of what they're wearing or how they're dressed, and when in reality, it's we're not to judge them for that. That's their beliefs.
I just recently, and this will go in recording, this will be the first time it's going to go out to other people. I just recently got a free background check thing from one of these background checker companies. I became a director at a company, and they sent me a thing. Hey, 1 month free background checks so that you could buy our service.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay, let me put some stuff in here. So I started putting my name in, then my dad's name and my sister's names and stuff, just trying to see. And I'm like, does this thing even work? So I work with a prison ministry, and I know a lot of criminals. I know them by name. I know who they are, and so I'm like, let me put one of my buddies in here because I know he's got. And I put his name in, and I hit enter. And I was so glad I did, and I so hate that I did. And he doesn't know it yet, but he listens to my message sometimes, so he may hear this. But I'm not going to name him, but he'll know who he is as soon as I talk about the crime. But I put his name in, and I found out that he and some other guys had committed conspiracy to commit rape on a group of girls. That's almost
Yeah.
the worst crime in my mind.
Absolutely.
It is so evil and so horrible, and this is 20 years ago. He did his time. He is a leader among men, leading other criminals to Christ. Hug him. I shake his hand. I actually haven't seen him since that. I've missed him every time. But my heart went, judge. It changed me. Even though I knew he was a felon who'd been in for years.
Yeah.
The description of his crime went to my head, went to my heart, and then I'm like, who am I to judge him?
But not only that, but if you, in our books, looking at it, okay, because I'm sure you have daughters.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I have sons, I have 2 boys, and my thing is we look at stuff differently down here on earth than he would up there,
Oh, yeah.
So that one crime that he did, that sin, and it says that no sin is
It's
greater
great.
than.
And yeah.
So just because that was his sin, I've sinned just as equal as he has when, I
Totally.
take the Lord's name in vain. Something so minimal, and I say it's so minimal compared to what we would view
Worldly
as rape,
wise. Yeah, a rape. And a conspiracy to commit rape. They planned
to do it.
to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the purity of evil right there to
Yeah,
me.
sure.
Manslaughter of somebody when you come home and find them with your girl. Not so bad for me. It's the same thing. It's a horrible sin.
It is.
But to plan something so horrible, and I know that in my heart of hearts, I've done things in my mind as equally bad.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Absolutely.
And in action, any sin is just as equal as any other sin. I have done sins. So I'm in the same place. So my brother, I should have the heart of, you are covered by Christ. You are Christ to me. You are my brother to me in Christ. You're as pure today as you were before I knew your crime.
Yeah.
And having that heart of a Christian and being able to keep that and stay with it and not have any difference of how I treat him.
Right.
That's the thing to me that God gave me the opportunity of with this to go, man, that's some good stuff right there. God has just said, okay, you say you're not a judger. Here we go. Bam.
Yeah.
Now, how do you feel about that?
Well, and that's that's a test that I think, when we become a loyal Christian, I think that's a test that gets thrown at us almost daily. I mean, it's easy for you to go, coming out of Dillon's, you see a homeless guy. It's easy for you to label that guy as a nobody.
Yeah,
as
definitely.
a former user, or
Yep.
this is why he is in the way he is because of the life choices that he had made.
Right.
But we don't look at that, maybe the aspect of maybe he was kicked out on his own at 14 years old.
Right.
And he's never recovered. He's never had an opportunity to recover.
There's so many ways that we judge with no knowledge, and we don't judge ourselves first. The big plank in our eye and the speck in their eye
Yep.
statement is one that the only God could level up my level of judgment by if somebody did something horrible to me. That's about the next only way that it could get worse.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that he gave me that opportunity without having to have that happen.
Sure.
Because we have friends here at the church who've had family members raped
Yeah.
and had to go through all of those pains of,
In your
I'm still a
anger-
Christian.
Oh, yeah. In your anger for them, your anger for the situation, I mean, it's easy to get